Pull up a chair to the fire, my friends. This is the America's Summer Playoffs.
Round 4. Ready, set, go!
We are ready to go with round number 4 of 6 that are going to be played out today at the Americas playoffs. Amnesiasc is back on stream versus Empanizado, who's also back on stream. We've seen both these players, and Empanizado has actually performed very well from the series we played. We didn't play, we watched. So we saw him play pretty well there, and Amnesiasc also, we had the pleasure of casting and seeing him doing very, very well. And I'm looking forward to this series as well, because this is just going to be another great match, I believe. Both players playing very strong. Both players got pretty strong lineups, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, no great surprise to me to see two players playing out a 3-0 match who have markedly similar lineups. It's Pirate Warrior, Murloc Paladin, Jade Druid, and the Highlander Priest. I like Amnesiasc's lists a little bit better overall. I love what he's done with his Paladin in particular. Maybe the Pirate Warrior list, the way I like to build it, I give a slight edge to Empanizado, but overall, I think Amnesiasc has built the slightly better decks, but I like this lineup. It's nothing fancy, but sometimes in a tournament metagame, you come full circle to the point where the base 1 strategy of just pick 4 of the best decks and play them well becomes good again, because everyone else has gone so high level with their thinking that it rotates right the way back around to the point where the entry-level strategy is strong.
Yeah, the good decks are good for a reason, right? And although you can try and counter, as you said, when that gets a little bit too far, it makes you get punished here. And we're kicking it off. Game 1 with a mirror match. It's going to be Paladin. They're playing against each other. Both players bring in very, very similar decks, but there are a few differences. For example, there is only one Spike Ridge Steed for Amnesiasc, but he is playing the Cobalt Scalebane, whereas that card just isn't in Empanizado's list at all. But Emp is actually playing the Crazed Alchemist, whereas Amnesiasc doesn't have that available to him. So just a couple of different choices there, but both choices could be very impactful for both players.
And as with any mirror match between two aggressive decks, the fight for the early board is huge. Amnesiasc does have Crawlers in his deck, but no Hungry Crabs to be able to swing this board state. And a lot of this, what this is about, is early maneuvering between your 1 and 2 drops. Righteous Protector can actually be huge to protect value trades coming down on the board. As you see coming out here, this coin Righteous Protector means Rockpool Hunter on curve won't be able to remove the Murloc, and then you become the player in the position of being able to snowball to your will.
Yeah, and also what this should do, especially with the second Righteous Protector, it should mean that the War Leader gets to buff the Tidecaller, and then the Tidecaller picks a trade, as you mentioned.
But also, if Empanizado had a Rockpool Hunter in his hand,
if
he draws Rockpool Hunter next turn, this allows the board to be dictated on his terms as opposed to Amnesiasc's, and that's what you're looking for between turns 1 and 3. This is what really lays a platform, because suddenly the player who gets to turn 4 and has been able to pick up value trades, their Blessing of Kings is live, their Gentle Megasaur is live, their Corpse Taker is protected on the board because they have board control. Suddenly everything unlocks for you.
Yeah, we saw round number 2 there, just as a bit of background on how Amnesiasc's doing so far. He actually 3-0'd Hot Meowth, his HGG America's teammate. Actually just took him to town, I believe, so I believe Hot Meowth is actually out now as well, so do you see a lot of, like, friend kills, I would say, in tournaments like this?
Friend kills.
Just because the pool of players is so small, it is going to happen at some point.
It's a lovely juxtaposition between a very happy word and a very angry word.
It's not always angry.
Killing?
Yeah. You can kill the unfriendliness between people and make them friends.
Sure.
Rallying Blade, not a bad pickup at all here. It does allow Amnesiasc to actually clear this board and keep a board of his own, which is actually massive.
And exactly what I'm talking about. He's going to roll into that turn 4. He's going to have a minion stuck on the board, and he's going to have a Blessing of Kings in his hand. It's huge. Just who gets to dictate these early turns? That Rallying Blade has changed just about everything here.
Yeah, and Empanizado is actually got a huge problem. He does not have a follow-up. Realistically, his follow-up is either just play an Alchemist at the moment or drop a War Leader into a Rallying Blade, which definitely isn't great. Now we can go Vilefin Hero Power, which does generate an additional minion onto the board, but you also know they're just dead. The benefit here is it does change the hero power, which means from now on at least he's creating Murlocs and not just dudes. Second Rallying Blade here for Amnesiac. Doesn't need it quite yet, but it does mean next turn he's kind of shored up as well. Rallying Blade into go like a crawler means that it, not the best turn 5 in the world, but a turn 5 straight after a Blessing of Kings as well. I imagine we're seeing the Blessing of Kings, by the way.
Yeah, the Rallying Blade isn't the worst draw on his deck, so at least gives him a little bit of security. He's used both of his Rallying Blade charges on low-value targets at this point if he ends up swinging this turn. So it's not the end of the world to be drawing the second one here, because it makes you feel just a little bit better about the perceived wasted value of just hitting in the end. What was it, a 1-1 and a 1-3 with your Rallying Blade charges?
But although I think the perceived value importantly is it was actually massive value because it allowed Amnesiac to get to this point on the board. He didn't go for the Blessing of Kings because he values keeping more than one minion on the board. He wants a wide board that we know both these players not playing Consecrate.
Right.
Well, it's all minion battles. It's all minion battles.
Let me think.
So now Empanizado just hasn't gained any better options with this draw. Tyrion, very good card, not on turn 4.
Yeah, and this is a luxury that Amnesiac has been afforded by winning turns 1 to 3. He could have Blessing of Kings. It was fine if he wanted to do so, but he had the option to not do that as well and still have that Blessing of Kings reserved in his hand. You don't have to consolidate your small minions into big minions in this matchup anymore because you're not running into Consecration. It's just not a card that's being featured in these Paladin decks anymore. So these wide board states are incredibly difficult to deal with.
Yeah, and look at this run from Empanizado as well. Like, Monsanto 3-2 in the close series, we opened with today. Yeah. But then 3-0 Fishy, 3-0 Will Scarlet. He might be having the tournament of his life at this point if he can beat Amnesiac as well. 1, he goes 4-0. 2, he goes 4-0 with a lot of, a couple of good names against his lineup as well that he's actually just beating out in this Swiss. So huge game here, but Amnesiac going for, or at least having the opportunity to go for Finger is huge.
Does pick up that 1 extra buff on his Tidecaller that he needs to trade effectively as well, not have to double trade through. You make a strong play, but Amnesiac plays to the beat of his own drum. It wouldn't be the first time today, or even the first time this match, that we've seen him do something just a little bit unexpected. But hey, Finger on 5.
Well, I think Finger on 5 and Blessing of Kings after Finger. Yeah. What is the drawback to Finger at this moment? You can clear the board easily. What can Empanizado possibly play that would stutter this? If he plays Corpse Taker, well, you have the minions now you have the minion to deal with it, to prot the shield and then still kill him with Finger.
He's going to keep the Tidecaller around. Had the opportunity to keep a 1-1 Murloc and a 2-3, valuing the more aggressive Murloc, the more threatening Murloc to have instead.
I like this because you're making a reasonable presumption the Tidecaller is probably not dead this turn, and then you put War Leader. Game.
Me think.
To a certain extent. Crazed Alchemist on the 3-1. Might reduce damage for a bit, but it actually just makes the Tidecaller a bit heavier there, which is a bit of a problem. And Empanizado now just passing on 5.
You have fun with this name, don't you?
It's because I just want to call him Empa, but that's not his name, so. I like shortening people's names. I want to call him Amnesiac. Ami.
Sure.
Let me think.
Corpse Taker is a viable play here, but Blessing of Kings starts to deal a huge amount of damage in this position. He does still have the Wind Fury pickup off Corpse Taker that can end the game almost on the spot here, but Empanizado choosing to AFK essentially on the last turn, just went off, grabbed drinks, came back, skipped a turn, no big deal. Serious point being he doesn't want to put minions on the board for Finger to be able to trade into, but this just isn't a winning line either.
Yeah, Corpse Taker does have Wind Fury. You can just about see the windy effect on the minion through that Divine Shield. Blessing of Kings, there's 14 damage. There's a Tidecaller. There's also Rallying Blade to combine next turn. Amnesiac, clean game.
Yep.
Very, very clean game. Helped massively by draws, of course, but that's what the game is. And Empanizado is actually just fell behind far, far too much. The Tyrion draw, the Bone Mare draw, those 2 cards, if they were any playable 2 cards, he would at least be in contention here.
It really was that Rallying Blade pickup on turn 3 that broke the early game in Amnesiac's favor. Both players, I think, sequenced their plays correctly in the early game to give themselves the best chance of sticking minions to the board and being able to snowball. But that Rallying Blade, the first one, not this one that you see coming down now, was a huge swing for Amnesiac.
Really was. Amnesiasc now. It's all just about closing out the game, which sometimes you can whiff on. It's actually, maybe not as simple as people presume. Like one over trade or one too aggressive push, you can give your opponent a few openings. Might not be there this game, but in general, knowing exactly how to close out a game from a winning position is still a skill in itself.
Yep. Crucially, still the life steal available on Empanizado's Corpse Taker. If he'd have drawn his burn bristle here, then he would be in serious trouble. Because the Blessing of Kings on this Corpse Taker would just be pushing enough damage. But with the heal, he is alive for now.
More Murlocs. Hello, War Leaders. There we go.
Never mind. Double War Leader does the job. That is 16 coming in from the Corpse Taker and 10 coming in from the Tide Caller. It was a spectacular end to the game, but it was an end that was very much on the cards for Amnesiasc. He was in control of that game as early as turn 3.
Yeah, and I think if we rewind all the way back to Hearthstone Global games, where the Stormwatcher actually really came out of the woodwork in terms of deck lists, we didn't see it there played, but it had a huge impact on the game. The Stormwatcher giving the Corpse Taker Wind Fury, and I asked you a question. I said, I'm very interested to see how often the Wind Fury wins you games, right? Because sometimes you play Corpse Taker, it then gets traded into, and then Wind Fury may as well not been there.
Yeah.
And you're using a Stormwatcher in your deck that you never want to draw. But more and more, I see games actually get played out like that, and then it's actually a huge impact. Surprise.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is a percentage of games that wins you. That's the intention of putting any card in your deck. I think over time, I've become more convinced by the Stormwatcher package. I was a big naysayer at first, but I'm seeing more and more results like that coming out now.
Yeah, well, Amnesiasc versus Empanizado coming back up, game number 2.
Don't stray too far away from the fire, my friends. There's more tales to tell. This is the America Summer Playoffs!
Can Amnesiasc move up to a potential 4-0 in this Swiss? We are going to find out, but what is definite is he cannot sneak up on people anymore.
If I compare my experience in my first preliminaries, which was 2016 winter, when I was playing against people, nobody really talked it up. I didn't play on stream until my final qualification match. No one really knew who I was. And then I compare it to now, where I'm probably one of the most streamed people in North America. When my matches are going on, people know who I am. It's definitely a different vibe.
It really is. When you've got the eyes of the world on you at that point, the world of Hearthstone at least, then there's a lot of pressure and people know exactly what you're going to play. They know your style, they know what you like, and that is a an advantage in many aspects, but definitely a potential disadvantage in some.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, everyone by now knows how good Amnesiasc is, and not in the least because he keeps telling them himself. He is not an underdog story anymore. He's not a wonder kid coming out of nowhere. He's fast becoming a veteran and a mainstay of our scene. And, you know, as much as I like to poke a bit of fun in how confident he is, confidence is justified when you're as good as he is because he backs up every word.
He really does, and he's got his chance to back it up in this series and potentially go 4-0 in Swiss, which is a very, very strong position. I think TJ mentioned it earlier, but if you go 4-0, tiebreakers combined with you're probably confident you're going to get another win, normally means you can at least get into that top 8 spot and have that playoff match. Amnesiasc going to be kicking off game number 2 on his Priest, and Empanizado going for the Warrior. What do you think about this matchup? Because I know, who was it? RDU versus someone did a Warrior versus Priest best of 11, I think.
Okay, what was the result?
And I think it was close-ish, but when I was watching RDU, I think it might have ended up close, but RDU was getting beat hard as the Priest.
RDU was playing the Priest. Yeah. Interesting. RDU has done a lot of those challenge matches from the side of the Pirate Warrior in the past, but
I'm sure he was playing Priest.
Interesting to see him playing Priest. Honestly, I'm fairly happy to see this matchup from the Warrior side. The majority of the time, I think they have to have very specific answers lining up, and I think you have fail-safes as the Pirate Warrior. If your board doesn't stick, then you can just go big weapon and just start clubbing them down. Then they kind of have to draw that Gluttonous Ooze to answer that as well. Bitter Tide Hydra is almost just single-handedly game-winning. They have 1 copy of Shadow Word Death if you drop it on curve, and if that does not come out immediately, it's usually just too much damage.
It's also very similar aspect, Bitter Tide Hydra versus a built-up weapon. Like, they have Ooze most of the time, but you also have, like, most players bring in Green Skin as well. There's so many upgrade effects that you kill one weapon, even if it's Reaper, as long as you can get to another weapon, you can probably build it up just as big.
Yeah. But as with any Highlander deck, any one-ofs deck, if you curve out a couple of early answers into a Kazakus on 4, you can change the odds of many a matchup in your favor. And Amnesiasc, a very nice start here. Spirit Lashing to dispel the early patches push. Now he's able to take care of a 3-4 with Shadow Word Pain if he would like to, or he can just go straight into Kazakus, but curving out into Kazakus next turn. It's like a distinct possibility. He's going to cycle the shield here before coming down with Shadow Word Pain.
What are you really waiting to play shield on in this deck, right? There's really not a lot of targets that shield's going to make a big difference. You need to cycle and get the answers.
If your opponent plays Korkron on 4, then your answer right now would be Kazakus Coin Power Word Shield if you haven't just used that, just to be able to try and contest the 4-3 with a 3-5. It's the one thing I'd be a little concerned
Just to point out, there's no Tar Creeper in Amnesiac's list. There's no taunts, more or less. Well, yeah, there just isn't taunts, actually. So I think cycling, potentially to a Galactic Crawler, to a Doomsayer, to an Ooze. There are so many things you want to hit. I like it. Let's check out the potion. See exactly what we got cooking. 5 damage, gain 7 armor. Fine.
Yeah. I mean, the point of what they're using the Power Word Shield there means isn't that he wants to cycle. He was always going to cycle that Power Word Shield, right? And he always had his turn 4, which was Kazakus, so he didn't need to draw a card this turn. It's saying he wants to keep his coin. He didn't want a Kazakus Coin Power Word Shield.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Right, because no draw was going to interrupt him playing Kazakus on 4. It just wasn't happening. So it means that he's really valuing holding onto that coin to potentially speed up a Shadow Reaper Anduin, give him more flexibility on a turn where he needs to play a greater healing potion. All these kind of things come into play.
Doomsayer might have stopped him. Maybe. Let's pitch there. Let's get the 5 damage kills. The Frothing Berserker and gains the armor. So Amnesiasc again just saying, okay, I'm just going to stay in a bit of a safe place here. But suddenly, Bitter Tide Hydra. Amnesiasc has the answer, which
Yep.
is absolutely huge. Just look at the difference, even if this Hydra hits once. Once. 8 damage, and the Arcanite Reaper Heroic Strike. Boom.
Yeah, this is just a series of defense checks being thrown out by Empanizado here, and Amnesiasc is passing them all with flying colors. He had the answer to the early push with the Spirit Lash. He had the answer to the first chunky consolidated minion with the Shadow Word Pain. Now he has the answer to the Hydra with the Shadow Word Death as well. Amnesiasc just has all bases covered, and you always have to count yourself a little bit fortunate when everything lines up so nicely when you do only have single copies of these cards in your deck.
Dragonfire as a choice now means that he can Death the Hydra, then Dragonfire a minion heavy next turn from Empanizado.
Pint-Size Horror likely to do the same kind of thing for a mana
sorry,
less, though.
didn't see the horror. I'll be honest. I wasn't looking at the horror.
Whether that's relevant or not, we shall see.
Yeah, there's nothing it doesn't hit, right, in Pirate Warrior, except another Hydra, of course, but
Right.
sure.
If another Hydra comes down, you're coining Anduin.
Yeah, exactly. So just have the availability here. Now double Pirate is an option. I wonder if there's a Reaper pass this turn, as opposed to Reaper drop the Corsair. Ooh. Or not play Reaper.
Yeah, just classical aggro play, really, just getting the slow damage onto the board first, right? Like the Dread Corsair and the South Sea Captain take a turn to get going. The Arcanite Reaper can come out as essentially charge damage whenever it's played. So he's just trying to line this up.
Yeah, what I was thinking about was if you play the Reaper, you can play them both and potentially another minion next turn.
Yeah.
And also the Spellbreaker is kind of hard to deal with just as a minion to priest. Like, they're not going to AoE the Spellbreaker, right?
No,
so
that's
maybe
fair.
you get a little bit more out of that. Because then you say, well, what if this is everything all game? I just upgrade a Reaper and hit you with a 4-3. What do you even do at this point? To get the board cleared, though, as we did see, it was prepped, but now Frothing Berserker into Arcanite Reaper. As you said, now like the sort of instant damage is going to hit. Heroic Strike only takes 1 upgrade effect and 1 more Heroic Strike, and that's just game. Although there is Healing Potion available.
Yeah, he doesn't have the weapon destruction just yet, but he does have Greater Healing Potion, which is essentially just another soft answer to the plan of, okay, I've lost the board, I'm just going to try and wail on you with Arcanite Reaper for the rest of the game. But honestly, if you start getting upgrades on that Reaper, Greater Healing Potion doesn't do that
You
much.
die very quickly.
Things change very quickly when there's a Prophet Velen on the board that you have to deal with, though, and Fiery War Axe about the worst draw in Empanizado's deck at this point. He would have taken another decent minion, he would have taken an upgrade effect, he would have taken his second copy of Spellbreaker that I believe he played, maybe just to answer this Velen and not have to sink 7 into it. 9, in fact, going into this Prophet Velen.
At least he has the Heroic Strike, though, right? Because if he just went, hit, Frothing, N'Zoth's first mate, you're like, oh no. Like, and Velen had to die. Velen kind of acts like a taunt in this scenario. Do you see Luca? Going to be the first player to be 4-0, beat Celtic Guard, who's 3-0 at the time. Oh no, he beat him 3-0, sorry. Well, of course they were 3-0 at the time. I'm talking nonsense at this point, which is not too much of a change from normal. But yeah, Luca going first 4-0. And as I said, 4-0 is a very strong spot to be in.
It is. Amnesiac looking like he's trotting quite nicely towards that position as well. Raza pick up, giving him that flexibility of being able to weave in the heals whenever he wants. Also the swing turns of Shadow Reaper Anduin if he gets to that position. And also, he's just kind of free to develop into this Frothing if he really wants to. Sometimes developing minions into a Frothing Berserker is a little bit scary because you don't have an answer, but if this Frothing pushes up towards 5, then, well, he actually has a way to answer it then that he didn't have before with the Shadow Reaper.
Well, I was thinking, why not play the Novice? Because what happens here is, if there's another Reaper and it kills Raza, Frothing goes to 4.
Yeah.
And isn't killable by the Anduin. So there's some extra damage then, and well, never mind. Raza was just lethal. I missed lethal at that point. That's just going to be game and Amnesiac. 2-0 already. If this is a 3-0 win, again, a confident play, strong play going into round number 4.
Yeah, he's the reason. There's a
5,
reason.
sorry.
He's my name on the board. To be quite honest, the more and more I've seen him play recently, the more and more I've actually seen him improve from the phenomenal player he was a year ago. And that's echoed in some of the thoughts we heard from him. You know, I made a little joke about him saying he felt he was in his prime when we spoke to him at Hearthstone Global
all
Games.
downhill from 16.
But I mean, who are we to argue? He's playing fantastic. And you know, the first series we saw on stream more so than this one. I think this one has been more by the books for him in terms of just how his card draws have lined up with his opponent. But in the first series, I think he made some inspired plays to come out on top.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's definitely always great just watching him play, whether it's because it's just crisp or whether he does something a little bit cute that kind of works out in the end. But I think, in terms of improvement, even from being a top tier player 6 months ago, a year ago, whatever, then the fact that so many pro players still argue over plays made in any given game means that there's somewhere to improve, right? No one is just perfect at Hearthstone.
Yeah.
And the fact that when you're at the level all of these players are and they're still working on improvement is very impressive to me.
Yeah, the game's incredibly hard. The problem is like when
Unless you're Clanto.
Yeah, then Hearthstone's easy. When you get to the point where most of the players in this tournament are at, you're struggling for dozens of hours to suddenly improve 0.1%, right?
Yeah.
You're not making these huge leaps in skill and huge leaps in win rate that you do as you're progressing and learning the game and becoming a legend player for the first time.
Even rank 10 to rank 5 is actually massive.
Yeah, but the dedication of these players to just keep putting in those hours just to get those tiny, tiny edges over their opponent is very admirable. And Amnesiasc in particular is a huge proponent of just squeezing out every last point of, yes, I'm going to say it, percentage that he possibly can.
Would you say?
No.
He's a percentage-based player.
Never again. Never again.
Okay, well, we're moving on to game 3, potentially the last game of this very quick series, if it all goes Amnesiasc's way. Empanizado has been looking strong so far, though. Don't get us wrong. We're talking a lot about Amnesiasc. He's a 3-0 in Swiss at the moment and took down some very, very strong names. We're going to a good old-fashioned Pirate Warrior mirror. What are the differences in the builds here, Sol? Because I know you mentioned you prefer the way Empanizado has built it, but why?
I like double Spellbreaker is basically what it comes down to. And Empanizado has double Spellbreaker, and Amnesiasc has a Naga Corsair instead. We see a lot of lists as well recently going down to one South Sea deckhand to make room for some of these extra cards, the additional Spellbreaker or that Naga Corsair. Neither of these players have done that. They're both playing double South Sea deckhand as well.
Yeah, I think the power of one-drops is still very strong in this deck, but I do see the point because the more like Zoo style you get with Pirate Warrior, the more does a 2/1, sorry, like change tons.
Right.
Like it does because it can proc weapon upgrades with the cultist, but I can see it. Eventually, Pirate Warrior still sticks around after War Axe. I can see that happening.
Yeah, I think for me, I also like remaining with double South Sea deckhand, and the reason I like it is not even so much for charging it out for 2 damage or 3 damage with Captain every now and again. It's just consistency of one drop. I find when you just have an Azos First Mate and 1 deckhand in your deck, you don't hit 1 drop often enough. And a lot of the games you win with Pirate Warrior are just playing a 1-drop on 1 and then coining Bloodsail Cultist or coining South Sea Captain, for example. Yeah. And you get a lot of those draws taken away from you if you lower the amount of 1-drops in your deck.
Yeah, it's just a note there as well. Empanizado, actually a member of the Mexican HCG team.
Yep.
I've not really mentioned too much. We talked about Amnesiasc was playing for America, of course, or USA, but Mexico did, I think, and this is not a bad thing, but way better than anyone thought they would.
Yeah.
To be completely honest. And it just goes as a testament to the team. We may not see these players playing tons of tournaments like DreamHacks, for example, but they're there. They're doing really well.
All the way back to week 1 of HGG, I believe the Mexican team brought a very off-the-wall Hunter deck.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, perked up a lot of people's attention, including yours, Raven, and that really put them on the map, but they followed that up with really, really strong results afterwards.
Impressive performance. It's going to need impressive performance to beat Amnesiasc in this series at a 0-2 deficit. Corcoran Elite, a lot of the time, just feels good. Just get him for 4. And knowing that there's Arcanite Reaper available next turn, I don't see any benefit of equipping that War Axe.
Yep, same. Amnesiasc evaluates his hand and says, you know what? There is a roughly 99.9% chance I'm playing a weapon next turn. I'm going to swing this 1 damage out. And there is a almost as high chance that this Corcoran Elite connects for 8.
And then now the Arcanite Reaper onto that.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of damage. Empanizado does have the Hydra unplayable at the moment, and nothing lines up well. There might be a thought here where Corcoran goes into Corcoran, he goes, okay, and then Empanizado just says, I think if I have Hydra and you don't, I can potentially catch up.
I honestly think that's the play. I think you have to take his 5-mana turn against your 5-mana turn and hope for the best. Yeah. You cannot go face here. You do not have the entitlement to be the beatdown in this position. 100% agree with this turn. And he's going to get paid out unless Amnesiac finds something different to do.
More 5
because he can race an Arcanite Reaper. It's only the addition of the Spellbreaker here messing with his Dread Corsair that actually puts Amnesiac in a really strong position.
Yeah, I think that's the point, right? Pirate Warrior can often not really beat Hydra in any good way, right? The minions are normally chunky, you don't really want to trade in and lose them, and the damage difference often doesn't make up for the amount of minions or damage you have to sink into it first.
Right.
Empanizado just going for everything he's got here. Amnesiac going for the Spellbreak. He wants a minion on the board as opposed to the weapon.
I love it. He's recognized the situation yet again, and he said, if I equip Arcanite Reaper and just swing at face, my opponent gets first chance here to just drop a Hydra, and then this game can snowball out of control, and it's not just Hydra.
I was going to say weapon taunt as well.
Right.
Suddenly you start to fall behind.
I mean, there's a number where, you know, just 1-mana Pirate and 2nd Corcoran Elite, and then suddenly there's just damage coming down that's racing. And Amnesiac showed the power of a surprise Dread Corsair in aggressive matchups when his opponent in our first stream game got way too cute against his Bittertide Hydra, and he punished him with the Dread Corsair coming back the other way.
And look at the adaptation on the backwards as well. Empanizado's like, well, now I don't want to play Hydra into this. I'll switch it up, kill off the minion, and develop Frothy instead. And now Amnesiac says, well, it's not says, but has Arcanite Reaper and upgrade. That adds up to lethal, pretty much. But there is the consideration of Frothing. But I think now with Amnesiac's hand, you have to play to what you've got.
Yeah.
I think it's worth skipping the Frothing.
Now, having committed the Spellbreaker to the board already, though, that Dread Corsair actually starts to race him very effectively.
Yeah?
For a deck that has a reputation of being brainless, there was a lot going on this match.
It really was, and Amnesiac disagrees with me, and fair enough. There is a Hydra and Corsair to go this turn if he wants, or he can now upgrade the weapon.
Can he invest 5 of his own health here into front-loading a Hydra?
I was just going to say, is there ever Hydra past this turn?
I like it, yeah.
Oh, I love Pirate Warrior mirrors, they're great.
They are.
And now Amnesiac's got a Corsair. I wonder what thoughts are going through Empanizado's head in terms of what Amnesiac's hand looks like.
At least one more weapon. 100% at least one more weapon. Whether he's got a read on 2, I don't know. It's very rare for Pirate Warrior to sit around with cards in hand these days because the fat has been trimmed. There's no Mortal Strikes almost ever anymore. In high-level competitive tournament lists, even Leroy is biting the dust. Neither of these players are playing Leroy Jenkins. So you don't sit with finishers in your hand. You draw stuff you can play every turn.
Yeah.
So if you're sat around not doing anything, really the only cards that conflict in your hand are weapons and weapon buff effects that you're holding to try and get value out of
I was just going to say, the only one that's like halfway between is Greenskin, right? Because he equipped the weapon last turn. He could Greenskin this turn. Amnesiac's going for the only play I really see in terms of the upgrade and the Corsair, because if he just hit and then equip the second Reaper, then he just tells him, okay, well, I've got 2 weapons, basically. This is clean.
It's a little bit dirty.
So you don't get hero power?
Well, you can hero power for 1 less attack on your Bloodsail Raider, or you can get 1 more attack on your Bloodsail Raider and not hero power. It's actually a kind of a crucial decision you have to make.
The weapon's at 6. There would need to be, what, 2nd Corcoran plus weapon buff?
Taking the armor.
I like it. Are you sure you want to drop the Corsair here? I mean, look, we're talking about these high-level plays, but I think that one's a simple one. Don't die to the weapon.
Amnesiac's eyes light up like, wait, he roped the Corsair there? This was a sweet Pirate Warrior game.
Yeah, and that's going to be the loss. The Amnesiac with the Hydra just doesn't have an out. Everything made sense in that game. The Spellbreaker could say, well, he could have Spellbreakered the Corsair, but then the whole game would have turned out differently anyway.
I think that's the turn you look at, though. The turn where he didn't just equip Reaper and Giddy Up. I'm absolutely not going to sit here and say it was wrong. I totally understand the thought process behind the play that he made. It's just a matter of, you know, if we do want to sit here and be results-oriented in this position, does he win that game? Then you throw that question out of the window because it's a terrible question, and you ask the much better question, does he win the game on average if he plays Arcanine?
Exactly. Well, you see there that Hydra then could have been played. The plays all changed each other, which was absolutely great to see. We've got more of this match coming right up. Amnesiac versus Empanizado.
The Hearthstone Championship Tour is heading to Southern California for the Summer Championship. Los Angeles will host 16 worthy qualifiers from the playoffs. They'll be competing for the title of Summer Champion plus a spot at the World Championships. It's Hearthstone in La La Land, October 13th through 15th in Los Angeles.
That's what both these players are playing for. Winning is double fold. They get to go to the Summer Championships, and with that step, they get to potentially go to the World Championships. Amnesiac's already been. He definitely wants to go again. And for Empanizado, that would be an incredible achievement to come almost out of nowhere outside of HGGG, and GG's. It'll be good for him.
It would. I agree. It would be good games for him indeed. And Amnesiac definitely has unfinished business from his side. You know, he's said as much himself. Like he having came so close in the previous year, he feels like a player of his caliber should be there on the big stage competing with the very, very best and some of the names that have already made it at this point. Yeah, let's get into the next game. Amnesiac, of course, on the Pirate Warrior again. And Empanizado going for the Priest. We saw this go the other way and go Amnesiac's way in the flip side of this matchup. Let's see if Empanizado can get the win too. This hand from Amnesiac is just the juice. This is what you are looking for. South Sea deckhand now as well. It's just a lot of stuff to do in like 4 turns. Yeah. Coin War Axe into Bloodsail Raider wins so many games against Priest. What can't death it on 2. Right. I mean, what is their efficient answer against Bloodsail Raider, right? If they Shadow Word Death, suddenly your Hydras are completely free to run rampant if they come out on curve. Blood Mage Holy Smite, well, good job. There's 2 one-ofs in your deck you have to have in your hand before your turn 3. Silence is the one, but then you still played a 2-mana 2/3. It's not 100% that gets to attack the next turn. It's like a 45 to 50% answer. Maybe 40%. 37. Sure. Sol's made-up percentages. Brought to you by TJ Productions. Blood Mage just to trade with patches, pretty much. I mean, Empanizado knows what's going to happen here. There is a patches in his future. And there's a second Raider as well. Yeah. The only thing missing here, and this is why we didn't see Amnesiac swing, is weapon upgrades. You want your weapon to stick, especially with one Bloodsail Raider you know you're going to put next time, but the second one as well. We might just see him not swing again. Yeah. Now the Shadow of Death does nothing. The Shadow of Death here is an answer from Empanizado, but I wouldn't even be surprised to see him choose to hold on to it here because there's so many other bigger threats that can come out. He can start to chip through this piece by piece, potentially based on what he picks up. What do you think about the trade there? Because now, like, Potion Madness Smite is an option. It is. Again, it's very specific 2-turn combo, 2-card combo. It's just one additional combo, right? What I will say is if he's planning to play Frothing Berserker next turn, having a minion that he can trade off raises the Frothing to 4, as opposed to using the weapon next turn, which would raise the Frothing for 3. and then, Shadow of Pain, and so on, are answers, whereas bringing it down as a 4/4 for one turn maximizes the chance that it's going to attack. I think Amnesiac was always going to attack on one of turn 2 or turn 3. He's just decided it's turn 2 in this case.
Okay.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, D Pac-Man's beat Will Scarlet.
Huge result.
Right, I know that's not what you're looking at, but that is an update. Ooh, 8 tiers beat Gallon as well. Phone tap taking down Isa. I'm probably really happy. But yes. Ooh, PNC lost. It's at 2-2 now. Algodan, a Brazilian player, I believe. Is it Brazilian or Argentinian?
I would have said Argentina, but I'm not 100% sure without checking my notes.
I apologize. I should know that. It's embarrassing. But back to this game. The Hydra, after seeing the death as an answer to a 2-drop, it's got to be feeling fantastic. Frothing with Deckhand next turn. Hydra. At this point, there's probably only weapons left in Amnesiac's deck, so that's going to help as well. Looking very strong.
I wonder.
Do you have to, like, preemptive Spirit Lash here?
You're going to be real sad when Amnesiac curves out the Frothing Berserker next turn.
But that's the only card you're going to be super sad about.
I mean, there are things that will come down that your Holy Nova doesn't deal with, right?
Yeah, Captain.
Call Crotley.
Yeah, but at least you deal with this.
Right,
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, it's a miserable feeling.
It
but
is.
Yeah, you kind of have to deal with the board state in front of you. This is fine.
Nice.
But the Power Word Shield is free, essentially. Like, South Sea Captain will mess with you either way, so this just still sets up your Holy Nova, but it's so transparent. Amnesiac essentially sees a face-up card in Empanizado's hand right now.
Okay.
And very few things were going to be better than a Frothing Berserker that turn. Amnesiac found the one.
And there was a smile and a nod from Empanizado there. He was like, yeah, right. And I feel like after that draw, after the draws this game, Amnesiac was almost born to win this series. Because this, I don't think there's a better Pirate Warrior opening, except maybe throwing a random cultist there, 0 mana or something.
I mean,
like,
it's matchup specific exactly what your best opening is, but in my experience, Coin War Axe into Bloodsail Raider destroys Priest.
Galaka Crawler. If only had 7 mana. It's too little, too late. The problem as well is that the health actually doesn't reduce down back to 2 again for 2 of the minions here.
Right.
Oof.
Must consider.
Does anything keep him alive? I mean, he can Golaka the 6/3, but then the captain actually provides more damage than you'd
7 off the board.
Yeah, than you'd actually save. So the captain has to be Golaka this turn.
Is someone injured?
Going for the heal. The problem is here, Potion of Madness gets rid of 2 power, but doesn't kill anything else. If it killed the Corsair, you go for it, because that's just a lot of power.
Sure.
It's not going to be enough. Hydra can just get slammed here if he really wants. I think it's fine.
He doesn't even have to trade to protect himself against Dragonfire Potion because the Dread Corsair is protecting him against Dragonfire Potion.
What now?
It's not as if there can be Pain Dragonfire or anything like that either. No. There's nothing. Amnesiac knows there's no Shadow Word Death left. He's a long way away from Shadow Reaper Anduin. His Hydra's about as safe. You've even seen Spirit Lash. You know this Holy Nova in hand, for sure.
Yes. I mean, that is Amnesiac just making sure he does every permutation of Holy Nova plus a 1-mana card, because that is 100% knowledge. I said before, that card has essentially been turned face up in Empanizado.
And I think that's why he doesn't go Frothing for start. Potion of Madness Holy Nova on this board, okay.
Right.
Then we're talking, but Bittertide Hydra seems to be the power play here for Amnesiac. He is going to go for it. He's even. Going to just trade off the Galaka. I don't want any funny business. There would have to be miracles here. There's the pain. But really, it's giving Empanizado the wrong kind of pain here.
Yes.
Because I can't see anything that even saves him from this Hydra. Never mind all the other minions on the board.
There's been a punishing parade of pain from Pirates, from Amnesiac. The Shadow of Pain comes too late. The trade into the 3/4 was just to mitigate exactly this kind of combination. Being able to deal with the Bittertide Hydra means he can trade out the rest of the board, but he connects for another 8 with the Hydra. Captain Greenskin comes out as another huge minion, but no weapon effect to land. But do you need an upgraded weapon at this point?
Yeah, and before people pull me up, don't get me wrong, he could survive this turn from the Hydra, but I meant save him from the Hydra being a thing.
Yeah,
long term, you know.
You needed to kill that
Yeah,
Hydra.
I can imagine like, oh, the tweets already. Oh, actually, he survived the turn. I'd be like, well, let's see how it works out for him.
Is that your angry person on Twitter voice?
It's just my person on Twitter voice. But that is going to be the match there. Amnesiasc goes 4-0. The confidence is being backed up. Very, very clean games there from Amnesiasc. Good play.
Yeah, I mean, it was solid play. I think the games he won, he definitely had favourable draws over his opponent. His pre-straw anti-Pirate Warrior was fantastic for the matchup, and then they flipped the other way around, and his Pirate Warrior draw anti-Priest was fantastic.
That's how you do it.
But that's not to take anything away from Amnesiasc as a player, because, like I said, the first game we saw him on stream, I think he really had to scrap and fight, and I think he outplayed his opponent to win that series.